So the encounter with Jesus that I'm going to look at was Jesus walking on the water. I think it's in three of the Gospels. I don't think it's in Luke, but I could be wrong. But I looked at Matthew 14:22 to 33. So if you want to pause the video and watch it now, read it now, or if you want to just read it after, just whatever you fancy. But yeah, so this happened immediately after the feeding of the 5,000. It's a pretty big day, and after the previous miracle, Jesus takes time to pray. So he sends the disciples to go on ahead of him in a boat. And so they're out on the Sea of Galilee, which was known to get some pretty sudden and violent storms. And that's basically exactly what happened. The disciples find themselves caught right in the middle of one. And so in the midst of all of this, when I'm sure they're already quite stressed and worried that they're on this out in the sea in the middle of a storm, Jesus walks out on the water towards them, and they're terrified. Which I feel like is probably a pretty reasonable response. I know if I was them and I just saw this man just walking out towards me in the water, I think I'd really lost the plot. But he assures them that it's him, and Peter seems to show just this little bit more courage and trust in the Lord's power than the others do. Enough trust to go out in the water and meet him. So he boldly steps out of the water, full of faith. But Peter quite quickly realises that people can't just walk on water. And although he demonstrated great faith in stepping out, now he starts to sink. Sometimes the initial leap can be easier than the small steps that follow. Sometimes that initial leap that's just so full of faith and enthusiasm can be easier than when the wheels sort of seem to fall off the plans. His faith was replaced with this paralysing fear. Peter took his eyes off Jesus and allowed the storm to overwhelm him. And how often can life be a bit like that? How often do we allow the distractions to take control? When the storms of life come, it can be really, really easy to lose sight of Jesus' face and begin to sink. But Jesus didn't just let Peter drown. He didn't see him struggling and just leave him there. And that's our hope. Like Peter, we can cry out, "Lord, save me," and he hears us and he rescues us. And through God, we can do great things. We might not walk on water, but there are no limitations on God's power, and neither should we try to put any on him. In Luke 1:37, it talks about how faith doesn't make things easy, but it makes them possible. As Peter discovered, acts of faith and complete trust in the Lord are not easy, and neither are we promised that they will be. But what we are promised is that God will be with us each and every step of the way. We can do all things through him who gives us strength, but we need to focus our eyes, our minds, and our hearts on where our strength comes from. We can't hope to do it by ourselves in our human weakness, but in our weakness, his power is made perfect. And faith assures us that no matter what lies ahead, God is already there. We just need to keep our eyes fixed to keep us from faltering.